Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Modern Mom, where we talk about being a mom in the 21st century. My name is Remy Kay. I'm a comedian and a certified life and relationship coach. We have Ariana Cvinatic.
Yeah.
How are you?
I'm good. How
Yeah,
are you doing?
yeah. It's been funny. So I had skipped an episode last week, actually, and it's because I started this yoga training class. And so I was like, oh, do I just do a solo episode or, try to, scramble and get a guest? Didn't work out. So I ended up not having an episode last week. So I'm a little bit sad about that because since I started the podcast, when was it? Like 3 months ago? That's the first week that I missed an episode.
Wow, you're on
I
it.
mean, I guess I wasn't last week, but it's so easy for me to beat myself up.
Yeah.
There have been a lot of changes since we last spoke, and one of them being is that Ariana and I actually completed a grant recently. It was a 6-week grant and focuses on positive intelligence.
hmm
Okay. And so I actually invited, just before this, I invited Ariana to do a panel with me and one other person who was in what we called a pod for that. And it basically encompassed, starting this program, which is kind of a new way of starting your day and a new way of shifting your mindset in order to come from a place of sage, which is what is referred to, instead of coming from a place of, they use the word saboteur. You know how I feel about this word.
Yeah.
Coming from a place of like our monkey mind, I guess you could say, or a place of like fight or flight.
Yeah.
And so shifting away from that. And so I wanted to bring Ariana back and I wanted to kind of talk a little bit about that. So we just finished the program. So what was your experience with this program?
I had a really positive experience with the program. I thought I was very skeptical at first, it being free and nothing being free in
Well,
this world.
free to coaches.
Free to coaches,
Yeah.
that's true.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it and coaches get offered so many things, right? Free this, free that. So I was skeptical about, are we actually going to have to pay or not? And um, ultimately, it led up to like offering a membership to further in the program after.
Yeah.
But
But that was like 6 weeks later.
6 weeks later, and after so many like great tools and lessons and reflections on, you know, what's going on inside my mind when I'm not paying attention, and how can I shift that by constantly doing these PQ, positive intelligence reps, is what they call them. And it's essentially kind of mindfulness practices, rubbing the two fingers on your hand together so delicately that you notice every ridge. Um, and so on and so forth. Maybe body scanning, maybe listening to the sounds around you, noticing the smells, taking
Mhm.
deep breaths, um, focusing your sight in and out of focus. Just lots of different little helpful things that you can do throughout your day that can help bring you out of the autopilot mode and
Mhm.
back into, oh, I'm in my body. Oh, I'm in control of my thoughts again, and I'm not letting them control me.
Yeah. So Shazad, is it
Shirzad.
Shirzad?
Charmaine.
Charmaine. Okay. Shazad Charmaine is the founder of Positive Intelligence and Positive Quotient and has a book actually called Positive Intelligence, which is out there. And so he's the one who kind of has a team and they initiate this program and they offer it as a career coaching program, I think, to CEOs and leaders. And it's about $1,000 for the 6-week program. And there's access to the app, there's access to community, there's an opportunity to work with other coaches. So Ariana and then a third person was actually part of our pod, our part of our group, and we would meet every week to kind of hold each other responsible and accountable and whatnot. And then every day we received prompts on our app to remind us to do different things that had to do with shifting ourselves into more of a sage, the sage mind versus the what's called saboteur mind. And so that's kind of, I think, just a little bit of background of what the program is. So it was a 6-week program. And so every week we would kind of meet, the group would meet every week. You and I would actually meet also, I mean, just because we climb together all
Yeah.
the time. And then Aku and I also met, and I hope you had a chance to also meet with her too. And so we would kind of check in with each other regularly in order to hold each other accountable. And so now the program's ended, and it was the slowest ending I've ever had because he continues to provide focuses in the app
Mm.
and there's still some connection. How has it been since the program's ended for you? Have you found yourself kind of taking steps to stay toward the sage mind?
To be honest, I kind of missed that last week because
Okay.
I was on vacation in Mexico,
Yeah.
and so I haven't gotten back to it at all.
Okay.
I haven't really opened it, and I do notice a shift in myself of not being as positive.
Interesting.
Mhm.
Talk more about that. So what you saw while you were actively doing it versus the shift you saw.
Yeah, so starting off that every day with that daily focus, putting yourself in that right mindset. And he was really encouraging us to do it before we did anything else throughout our day. So, really starting it off on the right foot, um, and creating that sense of um, happiness and well being, like first thing in the morning.
Mhm.
Um, it was really important and it like set me up for success a lot, got me into the routine of doing it. And not having that grounding routine anymore was difficult, paired with the things on vacation where you're just like, I'm not going to
Go,
worry
go,
about
go. Mhm.
anything and I'm just going to wake up late and do whatever comes my way. And then since coming back from vacation, I haven't been able to really pick back up where I left off.
Mhm.
And a few other outside factors have happened, but I find myself being a little bit more short, with family members or
Interesting.
um, just not feeling that sense of overall happiness and well-being that I was feeling
Interesting.
during the program.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's so interesting. Yeah, I hear you. Started my yoga teaching program and I'm almost feeling like I'm being pulled. And so, okay, it starts off with taking a test to
Mhm.
figure out what your top archetypes, or I call them archetypes, but saboteurs are. And so my top saboteurs are hyperachiever, restlessness, and hypervigilance.
Mhm. Those are my top 2, except instead of hypervigilance, I'm also um, people pleaser.
People pleaser, I was going to say,
Yeah.
actually, because you are a lovely person.
Thank you. Too lovely.
Too lovely, apparently, according to the exam. And so, okay, so let's talk about the restless and the hyperachiever because we both have that.
Mhm.
So for me, that shows up as constantly feeling like I need to stay busy, which don't get me wrong, I still do it. I have not been cured or anything. But it also, I notice, shows up in the sense that I'm like, okay, am I doing everything I could be possibly doing in this moment? Which is almost the opposite of being in the sensory mind and really being mindful and in the present moment and doing, because I think with the PQ reps or the positive quotient repetitions, it's like you can use your sense of touch and you can either touch the fingernails or touch some kind of material. You can use your sense of hearing and listen to the closest sound and the furthest away sound. And a PQ rep can be done as little in three breaths, basically. And then the other ones are like tensing and relaxing the muscles, kind of visually seeing what's in front of you and then tuning it out and doing different things with the visual. And so those are repetitions. And so this morning, for example, first morning where officially the program is ended, but he continues to provide focuses. And so I almost was going to just get up and go and do my thing. And I really had to have compassion for myself. So I noticed my judge pop up because the judge is like the first archetype. And so the judge popped up and like, you're not doing what you're supposed to be doing. So I celebrated that I noticed it.
Nice.
And then, kind of went into compassion for myself that, hey, this is not my habit. This is, a habit that I'm trying to break from, 40 plus years
Right.
of living a certain way. And it's okay that I'd forgotten for that brief moment. And so I, continued. One of the things that is taught is to have it in your morning routine. So it's like, really touching the blanket or, touching your feet on the ground or touching your phone if you have to turn off your alarm. And so I kind of got back into that. And so those first few things I noticed does help me kind of get into this different sense.
Mhm.
And I noticed that I'm a little bit better.
Yeah, and the thing with restless that you were mentioning, right? Um, Always feeling like we need to be doing more and making the most and being efficient and productive and all of that. Very much a result of our society and how it's set up, and what success looks like in society. But um, a good way that I've kind of s- thought about it is quality over quantity.
Yeah.
And so the restless part of me thinks quantity is better, do more, do this and this and this and at the same time this. And I've learned that, you know, quality is better than quantity. And I'm only going to be doing this one thing and I'm going to be fully paying attention to this one thing. And that's really important in relationships
Right.
because if I'm talking to a friend and they're pouring their heart out to me, but all I can think about is, I got to get to this place next, and I'm not fully present in there,
Right.
they're going to feel that. I'm
Yeah.
going to feel that. I'm going to be stressed. I'm going to make them stressed. And then they're going to show their stressness to
Right.
me and so
Feel
on and so
unappreciated. And actually, even that, he talks about in one of the sessions is when someone's talking, to listen to their voice, listen to the inflections of their voice, hear, even if you're having trouble hearing what they're saying, like listen to the tone and staying very present. I mean, I just feel like there's almost something for everything.
totally.
Everyday life living, essentially, there is a PQ rep for that. I mean,
Yeah.
just like there was an app for that, there's a PQ rep for that. So I appreciate that. And I think you're right. That whole, being really present and being in that moment and just really getting back. And I think this is a theme in our society that our society is trying to strive toward is really staying in the now
Mhm.
and appreciating the now. Eckhart Tolle has that book, The Power of Now.
Mhm.
And it's really about moving away from, I mean, people are always trying to move us away from our fight or flight mind. But in his book, he talks about shifting into the observer.
Mhm.
So looking at the monkey mind with curious, objective observation of
Yes.
like, oh, now the mind is doing this, but not being engulfed in that.
The West is just getting to this, right? The East has
Yeah.
been practicing this for centuries and knowing that it's a really important central part of, being a present and fully experienced and accomplished and evolved human, but the West is just learning all of this. And
Yeah.
so Eckhart Tolle, he's German.
Yeah.
He learned this from, Buddhist practices, from other Eastern religions and traditions and stuff. So I think it's really important to bring it back to like where it comes from, the
Right.
origins and the roots, and give that credit
It's true.
where credit is due. Because also like the creator of mindfulness in the West, gosh, what's his name? I'm blanking on it now, but he didn't create it.
Hmm.
Mindfulness has always been a thing.
Is it the author of The Untethered Soul?
No, no, no. I can't remember right now.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I just, for my yoga class, I had to read The Untethered Soul.
Oh, nice.
And have you read that book?
Yeah.
Okay. So that's one of those things about really, being mindful in the moment, but also letting go of like certain attachments and stuff. And it also talks a lot about like the Buddhist
Yes.
type of, kind of teachings. And I actually recently just learned about Buddha's life
Mm-hmm.
recently in my,
Siddhartha.
yeah,
Yeah.
Siddhartha, in my yoga class
Yeah.
and stuff. And just like, how he was looking to all these teachers externally at first, looking for the answer of enlightenment. And then finding out he had it all along from this memory of meditating in this apple orchard as a kid, like accidentally finding some absorption
Mm-hmm.
and, kind of getting back to that. And I love that idea of that because I've talked to you about this, and I think I even said it on one of the episodes with you, or the last episode with you. But tou getting in touch with my past selves often helps me reach an answer,
Yes.
or like my deathbed self, going in,
Mm-hmm.
to my deathbed self and asking, because my deathbed self is all about like spend as much time with the kids as you can and
Right, right, right. And
teach them
so
what you
by
know.
that you mean like when you're on your deathbed, what are you going to look back on and
Yeah,
remember? Yeah. And that's why my coaching practice, I wanted to call it the light within,
yeah,
right? Because we have everything that we need inside of ourselves.
yes,
We just have to quiet the outside noise in
yeah,
order to access that inner wisdom, and we know what we need. We know how to get what we want and become who we really are. It's just a matter of peeling back those layers
yeah.
that society has kind of thrown on
I
us.
mean, and I can't, help but look at that with compassion because it's like these layers often are placed upon us to survive,
Yes.
right? And we live in a very complex society. Like within the animal world, it's like you live or you die, you eat, you do everything to function from that perspective and to pass on your genes.
Right.
And here it's like we want to do more than just pass on our genes. We want to pass down a legacy. We want to have a 401k. We want to have a sufficient retirement. We want to pass generational wealth to our children. So
Yeah.
I feel like the wants, even though they're essentially similar, survival, but the means to survival are a little bit more complex. We're the only species on the planet who has to pay for our existence here
Yeah.
with money we made up.
Yeah. It's weird. It's very strange.
So yeah, that's cool. But yeah, what do you think, if anything, you would take away from doing the positive quotient, positive intelligence program?
Gosh, I took away a lot from it. But also kind of I guess the biggest thing is there's so many programs and books and things out there that are all essentially talking about the same thing, which is like be with yourself, quiet down your mind. Um, Positive intelligence, that program reminded me a lot of IFS, internal family systems, in therapy, and about the different selves, protective selves, a higher self, um, very much just different language for the same thing. So for me, first off, it's really exciting that we're all kind of coming to the same realizations just from different angles. Um, and then the biggest thing is, yeah, I know all these things now, but I need to practice them in order
Hmm.
to really benefit from them,
Right.
because um, I can continue to be a knowledge seeker for the rest of my life.
Right.
Um, but if I want to truly change the quality of my life, it's about putting these ideas into practice.
I agree.
And that's what coaching is, right?
Right.
It's like, I know I should be eating healthy. I know I should be getting enough sleep. I know I should be doing this, but I just can't seem to bring myself to that. And that's what coaching helps. It's like, okay,
Execution.
what is blocking you from this? And
Hmm.
how can we help you think of a time where this was easy for you? And how can we bring that into the present?
Hmm.
And so that's why I think everyone needs coaching. I
Yeah.
didn't know what it was before. I
That's so
was,
funny.
yeah. And after taking my course and working with clients and everything, I'm like, yeah. And then I hear friends talking about things, and I have to hold myself back from
Right.
not coaching them, because
Yeah.
it's like, no, I'm just
Listening.
a friend in this perspective.
But one thing I have appreciated is the ability to coach myself
Yes.
also in just what you said, when I'm in a social situation, having that kind of voice in my mind of like, okay, this is a time for you to sit back and
Yes.
and receive. This might be a time for you to offer.
Right.
I notice, ironically, after becoming a coach, I give advice way less
Mm.
than I used to,
Yeah.
unsolicited.
Yeah. Because people don't often want advice.
Yeah,
Maybe it's sometimes they just want to vent. They just want to be heard. They just want to be listened to. And if you're giving unsolicited advice, people probably aren't listening because they don't want it,
right,
right? So you're wasting your energy and you're annoying other people.
right,
I do it all the time as well. But
yeah,
um, I think it's when we really care about people, we want what's best for them.
right.
But sometimes what's best for them, well, actually, most of the time, what's best for them has to come from inside
Right.
themselves,
Yeah.
not
And I
from
think that's
outside.
important distinction to understand about coaching is that coaching isn't about, it's not like I've been coaching my kids in tennis lately,
Hmm.
and I take them to school a little early in the morning so we can hit some balls and stuff.
Nice.
And I have to tell my daughter how she's holding the
Right.
racket wrong and what to fix. And so, I think when we think coaches, that's what we're thinking is you're
Right.
telling us what to fix in real time.
Hmm.
And that's not what life coaching is.
Right.
Life coaching is, gently guiding that person toward the direction that they want to go.
Helping them have those realizations themselves of, oh, I do this.
Hmm.
Oh, maybe I can try to do it a little bit different. Really letting them pave their own way and make their own goals and help them figure out what that looks like for each individual.
And that could change, right? So initially, I do 3-month contracts with my clients. And so once we finish that 3-month contract, it's like a good time for me to check in and be like, hey, we've accomplished this. So these were your goals that you set out to do. We've accomplished that. Now it's up to you if you want to keep going. And if so, what are the new goals we want to
Hmm.
establish? Because unfortunately, I did run into something where I kept coaching the client, even though we'd finished the objectives. And the asks from the client were maybe not always within the scope of coaching.
Right.
They were a little bit outside, and
Mm,
then they felt annoyed because they weren't receiving their their what in their mind what their ends were.
I see.
Yeah, and then I was kind of also like, well, but this isn't also within my scope. So that was a lesson for me to
Mhm.
realize, okay, I really do need to update the client's contract every so often
Right.
to kind of understand what is our focus, what is our scope, what are our goals,
Hmm.
are these goals measurable, and then do we have a time frame that we want to hit those goals.
Yeah. Yeah. Sounds very organized.
I mean, it's learning process for
Yeah.
sure. So how has it been going for you in terms of community, coaching and community? So we had our pod for the PQ thing.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I found the pod very helpful because it helped me just feel like, oh, I'm not the only one feeling these things or thinking about this in this way. And it felt very validating. And so in that way, no matter what you're doing, to have a community that you can be like, oh,
Yeah.
this is, how do you do this? And what do you think of when this comes up? And it's really important. And in the parenting classes I teach, a healthy individual has two roles. It's to be somebody and to belong.
Mhm.
And so, knowing who we are and then knowing that we are a part of something bigger.
Mhm.
And so in that sense, it was really great, and I really appreciate it too because it helped me continue to show up, held me accountable.
Mhm.
But in my regular life as a coach, I don't have that same community.
Mhm.
I've tried. I'm a nationally board certified health and wellness coach,
Mhm.
NBCHWC. And they have an online website and forum and everything. But I need that like face to face or at least like online virtual meeting to really feel that community. And
Mhm.
I tried to create a meet and greet for like the people in the Bay Area, and no one showed up.
Oh no.
So it's hard. Everyone's busy and has their own lives going on and happening. And but yeah, for me, that sense of connection is really, really important. And so grateful to have you and other coaches that I went through my program with,
Mhm.
that I can continue to bounce ideas off of and
Mhm.
get feedback from.
Yeah, that's so important, having that sense of community and the belonging and the what was the first thing?
Be somebody
Be somebody. That's from IFS, right?
from Family Wellness.
Family wellness. Okay. Because okay, so we both have the certification in IFS, being
No,
able to no,
not IFS.
no, family wellness.
Yeah, Family Wellness is different than IFS.
Okay.
Yeah.
IFS is internal family systems,
Yeah,
which
that's
is the kind of
therapy.
the yeah, that's kind of the focus upon which we teach kind of like a class or are certified to teach a class to families called Parenting Without Violence.
Mhm.
And that is what is that? That's family wellness.
It's through Family Wellness,
Okay, okay.
yes. We
And
teach the Family Wellness curriculum.
okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's kind of those 2 principles come from that.
Yes.
Okay. And then that's what we need in order to feel like a healthy individual.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, so yeah, the sense of community is important. And I do notice that all my conversations another thing is, the conversations that I have are much more productive. So usually there's like a reason behind connecting with
Mhm.
certain people. And so lately, whenever I reach out, it's kind of like, okay, what is my purpose to reach out to this person?
Mhm.
Or do I need to follow up?
Right.
That type of thing instead of like, oh, just idle chatter. Like it just brings more
Right.
meaningfulness to my relationships.
Mhm.
There's something kind of going on there. And so,
Right,
yeah,
it's not just, "Hi, how are you?" or "How's your day going?"
small
"Good, how
talk.
about you?" Yeah.
I cannot do small talk.
Yeah.
I'm too Scorpio for that, I cannot. I'm not a small talk person. So
Speaking of Scorpio,
yeah.
what are you doing for the full moon tonight?
Oh, yeah, that's right. So it's a lunar eclipse, isn't it? Is that tonight?
It's a full moon, that's all
Okay,
I'm
so
yeah.
I heard there's a lunar eclipse. I don't know
Okay.
if it's tonight or another night, but they said no manifesting, just really relax and come into your own, which is kind of the phase that I'm in right now, is
Mm,
just really being in a receptive mode.
yeah.
And I love this yoga teaching certification class honestly because I'm getting so much more out of it than I thought I would. Like I
Good.
was really just kind of trying to get my certification so I can teach and my therapist actually had recommended to me like no, take an in-person class,
Mhm.
get a recommendation from one of your friends who's a teacher,
Mhm.
which I have many, many yoga teaching friends. And so, and she's like, find a class that you think would be. So I went to one of my a woman who's been teaching yoga just for years. She just got her 300 hour and she had got it at Breathe Together Yoga.
Nice.
And so that's what she recommended. She's like, I really recommend Breathe Together. And
Nice.
so, I
Yeah.
kind of like just show up and
Mhm.
I'm a Scorpio. My initial thing is like, I don't want anybody, don't look at me, don't talk to me. I'm very in my own little thing. I'm just here for my objective, which can, fall a little too far to one end of the spectrum. But in showing up to the class and meeting these wonderful people, and, they just have the similar goal to me, and it's like intensive. It's 6 hours a day, like 4 days a week, and then 3 hours one day. So it's 5 days a week for a couple of weeks. And seeing them in the class when I go to just take a yoga class is really it's powerful and it's like a sense of community. And now when I take a yoga class, it's so exhausting because I'm like, okay, I'm doing an external like, flexion and okay, this is an axial flexion or whatever. And so I'm really focusing on like what is this move doing for me? What parts of the body have I hit? What parts of the body haven't I hit? And then I sleep like a baby at night because
There
my
you
brain
go.
is so tired.
Yeah, and a lot of people take yoga teacher trainings not necessarily because they think that they want to teach, but just to further their practice
Yes.
and deepen their awareness and knowledge around it. And A lot of people that I took my 200-hour training with, didn't end up teaching, or
Oh,
at least
interesting.
they have that option, but they went just to, deepen and strengthen their own practice and be with like-minded individuals in a beautiful place. And
Oh yeah, I've been doing yoga wrong this whole time.
why?
Because first of all, I have what they call an anterior
Inflection?
yeah, something like that. Like
Oh, the
the anterior
posterior and anterior.
posterior.
Yeah.
Yeah, I still have the sorry. So I'm still learning. I have the posterior posture. So
Hmm.
basically, I have a posterior tilt. That's what it's called.
Tilt. Yeah.
I have a posterior tilt, which I've kind of known all my life. I've been told by chiropractors and stuff. I thought I had fixed it, but apparently no. And so when I do my poses, I tend to put the posterior tilt into my poses. And the whole thing about yoga is you want to compensate for whatever your default is.
Right.
You want to try to, as best as you can, neutralize the
Yes.
posture.
Yeah.
And so this whole time, and I'm looking in the mirror today as I'm doing my posture, I'm like, oh my God, I'm so off. So those types of things I did not don't know I was completely doing wrong. Also, really understanding, for example, like the warrior poses,
Hmm.
in which poses am I supposed to have my pelvis forward
Hmm.
versus off to the side,
Right.
and how to try to, use my muscles to keep that posture as best as I can as I'm doing these rotational twists and stuff. It's insane.
Yeah. There's a lot of little things to think about.
Yeah,
And when you start teaching cues and how do you cue the right thing for everybody who has a different body, it's a
right.
lot.
It's a lot. God bless you. Bless your heart. My God, yoga teachers, they should get an award. Oh my goodness. But yeah, so that's been kind of interesting to learn. But yeah, no, I've been doing it wrong this whole time.
It's okay. You once we know better, we do better.
Yeah, it's true.
Maya Angelou.
My Angelo, that's right. Yeah, no, so yeah. But yeah, what else is going on? Anything else we want to talk about?
Um,
Anything on your mind? How's your climbing been going? We haven't climbed together in a couple
oh
weeks.
gosh, my climbing's been really behind
Yeah.
because been moving
Yeah.
and wedding planning
Yeah.
and doing all the things. And
Yeah.
so yeah, climbing's definitely been on the back burner. I have been trying to like still get my daily movement in and everything, but now that I am 30 to 40 minutes away from the gym instead of 15,
Yeah.
a little bit harder. I definitely want to continue at least coming once a week, and teaching my yoga class here will help me get here.
Hmm.
Um, but yeah, it's just a matter of prioritizing and planning, and like being okay with it too, because I'm not like a super hardcore climber. Like
Right.
my whole identity is not I'm a rock climber.
Hmm.
I haven't even been outdoor climbing in such a long time.
Hmm.
Um, I don't I like to do a lot of things, and so
Hmm.
I don't get super deep into any one thing.
Hmm.
And so it's okay. Like to me, I feel fine with okay, I rock climb once a week, That's a lot better than before I climbed at all, and
Right.
it's fun and I
Yeah.
enjoy it. I'm not gonna push myself to become like a competitive climber or
Right.
anything. And I think that's the shift you need to make in adulthood of like as a child, you want to be the best because your parents are like, you need to get a scholarship for college and
Yeah.
like um but really like I'm just doing this for fun. So
Yeah.
there's no need to push myself.
Well, and it's funny because when my kid's father and my father, some theme with fathers here, want my kids to become a Wimbledon tennis player and a competitive golf person. And I'm kind of like, I want them to be active. I want them to get used to being active. I want them to play racket sports because it's good for the brain.
Hmm.
But at no point, I mean, if you pick it up and you become a Wimbledon, awesome. But at no point am I thinking Wimbledon
Right.
or championship or Olympics.
Yeah. Because that's not a very balanced life either.
I mean, my whole thing is racket sports are good for the brain. Let's do it.
Yeah.
Climbing is good for agility. Let's do it.
Yeah.
And strength and bone density.
Hmm.
Let's do it.
Hmm.
And I think that because I was so encouraged to be the best of everything and really ended up being who I am, which is kind of a loving person who's open minded and, interpersonally available, which is lovely.
Hmm.
I think that it's not that I don't have ambition for my children, it's that I'm a little bit more practical
And
about
that's
my
something
goals.
that Shirzad mentioned in our program too is like, do you want your children to be successful or do you want them to be happy?
Hmm.
And yes, they can be both.
Yeah.
Um, But really, like, when I have children, I'll want them to be happy.
Mhm.
I want them to feel good about themselves,
Yeah.
and but I don't need them to be the best at anything.
Right.
Because I'd rather them be a kind, loving person
Yeah.
than a CEO of a Fortune 500 company.
Yeah.
Because I would rather them have a balanced, healthy life and be a positive asset to society
Yeah.
than like a liability.
Right. I mean, there are people in society who are examples. Like Steve Jobs obviously was an amazing CEO, but having worked at Apple, I heard stories about, people who interacted with him and the interactions were not something I would want to deal with on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah.
And so I would want my kids to express themselves in a way that is as loving as they can and feel good about what they're doing.
It's interesting you're like, what else is going on for you? I was talking to my partner and I was kind of like, we were talking about like people like we knew in high school and what they're doing now. And I was like, oh, I think people, would be kind of surprised as to where I'm at now. Because in high school I was such a go-getter and I wanted to like do all the things and had so many awards and like super high GPA. I wanted to go to an Ivy League. I didn't end up doing that, and the trajectory of my life changed. Thank God, because I'm happy today, and I don't think I would have been happy had it gone a very different way. But I started to let go pretty early in my 20s of what I think will impress other people versus what makes me feel good.
Mhm.
And as a teenager, you're all about impressing other people
Right.
and your parents, and
Yeah.
you just want to be loved.
Well, that sense of belonging, right? And
Yeah.
we find it from achieving.
And now I've realized that I can get that sense of love and belonging being by by being that to myself.
Mhm.
Um, I'm never gonna have everybody like me. I'm
Mhm.
never gonna have external validation from everyone around me.
Right.
But as long as I'm okay with who I am today, that's a pretty good place to be.
Mhm. I agree. I like that. Yeah, I think that happiness is changed. The definition of happiness has changed for me a lot.
Yeah.
And it's, being able to do the things like today, I was happy because I did my PQ reps in the morning.
Hmm.
I dropped off my kids on time. And then I was able to, get my kids to school and come here and do, this podcast episode. And to me, like, oh, wow,
And you
okay,
got
I
to
got these
climb
things.
in between.
I did climb.
Yeah.
But my partner did get to climb one climb. So, I mean, but that's the thing. It's, I think I also have lower expectations of like, hey, if someone gets a climb in the meantime, cool.
Yeah.
If we can, push something else in, cool. But as soon as you arrived, I was like, okay, great, you're here. And then my partner asked me, like, do you want to climb real quick? And I was like, you know what? No, because that might actually stress me out more. And if
Mhm.
I'm on the wall and I'm thinking about, "Oh, I got to do this podcast, I don't want to set myself up for failure.
Quality over
Quality over
quantity.
quantity. Yeah, exactly. So great. Where are we at in time? Because my alarm just went off and I have to, oh, 33 minutes. That's not bad. Let me pause it.
Yeah. Three,
All
three,
right,
three, three,
cool.
three.
Okay, actually, never mind. Anyways, so thank you so much for coming on. Do
Thanks
you
for
have any
having me.
last minute kind of closing statements or anything you want to send off our viewers with?
Just to take a deep breath today and tell yourself you're doing a great job. And just by being who you are and showing up as your yourself, you're being a gift to the world. Because I put a lot of pressure on myself that I need to do this, this, and this, and then I will feel like my day has been successful. But really, it's just have I shown up for myself today, and have I connected inside and maybe with someone outside of myself. So
I love that. Thank you, Ariana.
thanks, Amy. Thanks for having me again.
Yeah, of course, of course. And thanks everyone for joining us on another episode of Modern Mom. See you next time.